The AH-60 Battlehawk. One of the most broken helicopters in War Thunder. On surface, it might look like your stereotypical BlackHawk with some minor differences here and there. But honestly, it is a hidden gem that not a lot of people have discovered its full potential. But what are the capabilities of the helicopter? How do we play it, and why is it the most broken helicopter in War Thunder? Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bob Dickinson and welcome back to another brand new video. Today, we will be looking at the AH-60 Battlehawk, but before we do that, let's talk about its history. Let's have a quick recap of the entire history of the BlackHawk. The AH-60 went into service mainly to replace the age-old Bell UH-1 helicopters. The Iroquois' payload and its survivability was quite lackluster. So a brand new tactical medium assault and transport helicopter program was begun. As always, the competitors participated. Only two were chosen, and the winner was the YUH-60A. The US Army declared the Sikorsky's design as the winner in 1976. It featured incredible energy-absorbing landing gears, compared to the previous landing skids, reinforced fuselage for crash landings, as well as special fuel tanks and feeding systems to prevent the start of a fire. All of this in conjunction with two brand new General Electric engines for major upgrade and mobility served to make this a worthy successor to the UH-1. This essentially became the Iroquois of the 1980s, being sold to many countries and still in service to this day, including Israel. During the time when the Iroquois was the trend of the utility helicopters, Israel was using its Bell 212 helicopters, and if they had a replacement for it, they couldn't be more happier to replace them with something better. In 1983, the Israeli Air Force started testing the UH-60s. The initial impressions were quite positive, as the helicopter made it to Israel by direct flight with several mid-air refuelings along the way, and after many more operational and performance tests in 1994, Israel received its first shipment of 10 BlackHawks, which received the Hebrew designation Yanshuf, which means owl. Hoot hoot! Hell yeah, brother! The BlackHawk would see its first operation 2 years later, where in the operation Grapes of Wrath, it would fly in assault transport, logistics, and secure and evacuation roles. It also proved that it was a tough nut to crack in harsh weathers. Later down the line, the BlackHawks were so good and incredible that Israel currently has 50 of them in service. There are also other variants of this helicopter, I think there's like 8 of them, but one of them, more notably, is the AH-60 Seahawk, which is on order for anti-surface warfare capabilities for Israeli coasts, and yeah, honestly, that's amazing. The standard BlackHawks were quite basic. Normal analog instruments with not that much of an electronic upgrade. So in 1999, the Israeli Air Force modernized their BlackHawks to the Yanshuf II standard. This one basically had in-flight refueling probes, modernized electronic countermeasures, digitalized navigational equipment, night vision, and improved rescue systems. This variant is still used to this day. With the recent tensions between Israel, Iran, and its proxies, the BlackHawk pretty much proves itself to be a very reliable helicopter. And of course, everybody knows it already, history may not repeat itself, but goddamn it definitely rhymes incredibly well. And just like the Bell UH-1 Iroquois, this utility helicopter was also modified to enhance the lethality of its systems beyond its logistics and transport roles. Around 2015, this task was given to the Israeli company Elbit? Albite? Yeah, this company. Tasked to upgrade the UH-60Ls to the AH-60L variants. Part of this upgrade package was the inclusion of the wing-mounted pylons with compatibility to Rafael spikes, Hydra rockets, a 20mm cannon that looks like a modern slang until it fires at you, and overall it received major upgrades towards its FLIR, analog instruments, and helmet-mounted display. The AH-60 was also renamed to the Battlehawk, and apparently it has also participated in the reconnaissance helicopter program in Australia, which was an entire competition itself. Like, I'm talking A129s, Eurocopter, the Apache, the AH-1Z Viper, the Roy Falk, and all these helicopters participated to secure a contract with Australian military. And yes, Battlehawk was one of them. Currently, 12 of the AH-60Ls are used by the Colombian Air Force, which had a major influence in determining the specifications for the final aircraft design, which not only could perform offensively but also does anti-tank, transport, and rescue roles all at the same time. This platform also has entered testing with the Israeli military in 2008, but funding has not yet been committed to the conversion of additional aircraft or generally large-scale implementation to the IAF. This was the general history of the AH-60 Battlehawk. Now let's get on with its armors and modules. Welcome to the Armor and Modular Protection Analysis, where we basically analyze the armors and modules inside of a vehicle. Today's helicopter is the AH-60 Battlehawk. Now the first thing we need to take a look at is the crew. The pilot is located on the right side of the aircraft while the gunner is on the left. The crew has CCIP on all of its weapons for everything it has, including EEGS for the belly-mounted cannon. It has optics with 63.5 times zoom, with night vision, thermals, TV and flare optical systems. It has an AN/APR-39 radar warning receiver, an AN/AVR-2 laser warning receiver, an IRSD auto tracker, a laser designator, an infrared countermeasure, a helmet-mounted display sighting system, and last but not least, the missile approach warning system with 120 countermeasures. With a placeholder cockpit with plenty of MFDs, which can do the job in simulator battles. This helicopter has two self-sealing fuel tanks, which mind you, in the last video, it literally showed me it was one, goddammit Gaijin, with these fuel presets. The fuel preset on the Battlehawk is quite standard, and I have to say the minimum fuel on this is more than enough to serve you in long-term game modes such as Heli PvE, and has exactly the same amount of fuel as the American MH-60L direct action penetrator. And speaking of similarities with that helicopter, this vehicle also has the General Electric T700-GE-701C engines. This engine is also seen on the AH-64D helicopters. Unlike the Apache though, this helicopter is relatively heavy, and even if your engines are fully responsive with regards to your collective pitch management, the helicopter itself feels like an Apache with full fuel. So watch out for your maneuvers when you're trying to sling your helicopter all around, even though I do have a trick that I will teach you further into this video that will help you out with regards to your maneuverability. At the end you have the oil cooling system, transmission, traction of the control surfaces, and prop shafts. Before I start with the armaments, I just want to say one thing. I'm not sure if you guys haven't read the disclaimer already, but this video is not political at all. Ironically, I made a harmless joke in the previous video, which was, about the Israeli Kafir Canard choosing its bombs, or, for bombing the Hamas, I see. Oh yeah, Hamas. Why do I feel like they're going to arrest me for this? And apparently somebody got offended by it already. I have to say this, that I have nothing to do with this conflict in the Middle East. Like, bro, I made a single joke and now the entire Middle East is on fire, for fuck's sakes. But anyways, let's get on with the armaments that this helicopter carries. Let's start with the Hydra 70 rocket pods. 4 on each pylon, 19 per pod, giving you 76 total. These rockets have a standard explosive mass and decent penetration, and overall they feel quite nice when you carry them. However, the distance between the rockets and the CCIP might be a little bit misleading due to the CCIP trying to centralize and estimate the rockets on all pods. So if you have rockets mounted on the both sides, please consider that taking the rocket CCIP's exact position with a bit of an error. And generally the rockets themselves do actually pack enough punch to cripple the enemy. Only if we actually had the goddamn... Up next we have the GATR guided rockets, or GATR guided rockets, only 7 per pod, giving you 28 total, installed on 4 pylons. Now if you have to look at these missiles, statistically and aesthetically it looks extremely similar to the AGR-20B on the Apaches, or the APKWS-2 with the M282 warhead. Okay, so I'm gonna go a bit off script here. So essentially what happened here is that the Israelis actually tried to make their own APKWS-2 with the M282 warhead, which it does have variable proxy fuse, Gaijin, please, if you can. Thank you so much. And of course the warhead itself is interchangeable. Now the GATR rockets do have a little bit of a weird playstyle. Usually you have 4 Hellfire missiles when you get the Battlehawk. However, if you want more precision guided kills with Heli PvE, or just, want to destroy low armor targets in ground RB, feel free to use this rocket. Other than that, the entire APKWS-2 shebang has its own history, and according to one of our subscribers, apparently Gaijin modeled them way off the grid, and I will eventually make a video about this one as well. Up next we have the dedicated air-to-ground missiles, with the AGM-114K Hellfire II missiles, installed on all pylons, 4 on each pod, giving you 16 total. The Hellfires are essentially ATGMs that have a top attack flight path. They have incredible explosive mass and penetration, and overall feel like they're going to punch extremely hard if they're going to hit the enemy. And that's the big word, if. Because I also went out and tested the other missiles on other helicopters, and I have to say, this thing maneuvers like a truck. Don't get me wrong, the missile is really fast, like I can genuinely see the speed, but it really doesn't turn that well. For example, if you actually give it a constant turn while having a lot of lag and packet loss, yet you're not going to land the ATGM properly. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, if your target goes behind a hill, behind the smoke, or behind the trees, yeah, just completely give up. Fire another Hellfire at it. You can search targets from time to time, but you need a lot of time and distance beforehand. It's just that it needs more patience than usual. Up next is going to be the most broken weapon on any helicopter. The Spike ER Fire and Forget missiles. Installed on all pylons, 4 on each pod, giving you 16 total. The Spike ER in itself is nothing really that special. The explosive mass feels lackluster, and generally the speed on paper is quite disappointing. I mean, slower than the SS-11. Other than that, the range is really decent, it lofts really high, and the speed of the ATGM is not really that slow once it dives down. And before I say anything, I would like to give you one pro tip for when you try to use the Spike ER or Spike LR Fire and Forget missiles. Never count a single spike as a guaranteed kill. Unlike the Hellfires, which, you can individually aim each part of a vehicle, the spikes or any other Fire and Forget missiles generally lock on the center of the enemy's heat signature and go on their own. And I think you can already see the problem there. Now, the problem with the spikes is that they're just random. Sometimes they hit the enemy directly at the center, sometimes the front of the vehicle, sometimes they don't even hit the vehicle at all, and sometimes they hit the engine deck. And mind you, this is not the first time that, we've seen Fire and Forget missiles on helicopters. Other rotary aircraft such as the top-tier French and German Eurocopters, or hell, even the Italian AH-129D, already have the Spike ERs and Pars 3 LRs, and those helicopters were rarely seen, due to these helicopters only being able to carry out 8 of them. With the mentality of 1 ATGM not being enough for each target, 8 really isn't enough. This motherfucker can carry 16 of them, which means a lot of fun experiments. A lot of fun experiments. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the Swarm perk from Call of Duty Black Ops 2. In ground realistic battles, you can push this thing to its absolute limits. The amount of kills you can get in heli PvE with this helicopter is just criminal. Only have 3 of these helicopters with full Spike ER loadouts, and you can pretty much let nobody get a single kill. Even in ground realistic battles, if you spam 3 or 4 of these missiles to a vehicle, you pretty much have a guaranteed kill, given if, no problems occur during the launch, for example, trees, smokes, or behind the hills or buildings, and etc. Fun fact, if you actually notice these missiles coming towards you, I would highly recommend you to use the smoke grenades very early, to make them lose their lock. And if you do it too late, the missile will still get you anyway. Other than that, this loadout is incredible, and I would highly recommend you to use it. And finally, the AIM-92 Stinger. Installed on all pylons, 2 on each pod, giving you 8 total. The AIM-92 Stingers are manpads that were made compatible to be installed on the helicopters, and, of course, other things as well. However, the game itself really doesn't specify what variant of it is, whether if it's A, B, E, or even K. These missiles don't have a proxy fuse, pull a limited amount of Gs, and overall feel lackluster. However, once you learn how to use them and how to lead them in a way that it puts less pressure on the Stinger itself, I think you can make it much more effective than usual. Other than that, you can also go full air-to-air mode by mounting all of the Stingers and fire them at the enemy aircrafts. And if they get close enough, your gun can pretty much do the job anyways. And speaking of its cannon, this helicopter has a 20mm GYAT, or GYAT, 20mm cannon. Now, unlike the other 20mm,
and 197 on the AH-1Z,
this 20mm is actually quite effective on destroying the enemy aircrafts upon locking. The only issue I found is with its placement. Underneath the belly of this helicopter, you really can't lead vertically unlike the Apache. So I would recommend you to either lock horizontally or keep your nose on where the bullets should travel. Outside of this, the cannon is really decent against lightly armored vehicles. Now let's have a look at the mobility. When it comes to the mobility of this helicopter, it feels nice, but it has its own limits. The engines that this helicopter uses are quite beefy, and overall feel nice to sling around. The engines can push this helicopter upwards really well. A bit too well in arcade battles. However, the helicopter itself feels relatively heavy and it feels like a truck. Not as heavy as the Mi-24s though, but something similar to the Mi-8s, but better. Now that was my opinion until I discovered a simple yet effective trick that can pretty much make this helicopter much more cooperative than before. You see, every time you try to stop or pull or turn, usually you tend to put the collective pitch down to 0%. On some helicopters like the Mi-24s or AH-64Ds, this works quite fine. On the Battlehawk, on the other hand, if you do this, you literally feel like you're an Apache with full fuel load in Rocky Canyon. God, I hate that map. So whenever you're trying to do an extreme maneuver, set the collective pitch to like 10 or 20% maximum, so you wouldn't have too much trouble maneuvering the helicopter. And honestly, the maneuverability of the helicopter does feel relatively fine, given if you actually use this trick. One thing that I also mentioned on my previous video about the BlackHawk is that, unlike the Apache or, any other rotary aircraft, this helicopter rolls not from its fuselage, but from its blades. This can actually give you the feeling that this helicopter is relatively heavy, so much so that all of the pressure is going to the mast of the helicopter. And honestly, the top speed itself is decent, it is serviceable, but it's nothing really that special. And of course, the bug that I talked about several months ago, and it still hasn't fixed in the BlackHawk. Or should I say Battlehawk. You see, in arcade battles, if you rotate your helicopter 35 to 40 degrees backwards, set the collective pitch to 100%, and wait for 1 minute, you will realize that you have successfully climbed more than 2,500 meters of altitude in less than a minute. This is only available in arcade, and outside of this game mode, it really does not work in simulator nor ground realistic. God, I wish. It may not be as sharp or as responsive as the Apache or the other Eurocopters, however, the pitch control is decent, the yaw control is nice, and the roll rate is quite balanced. Now let's have a look at the game modes. When it comes to the ground realistic battles, this helicopter is absolutely phenomenal. You have plenty of options on the table. You can either rocket rush, or roleplay as a Wish.com Chinese helicopter, aka 8 Stinger spawn camping, but you actually have a cannon that you can defend yourself with. You can use the GATR rockets to damage the lightly armored targets. You can use the proper ATGMs to single-handedly shaft heavily armored vehicles. Or if you're feeling way too quirky and think that aiming is for pussies, you can also pick 16 spike ERs. The playstyle heavily depends on you, but you must remember one thing. The spike ERs are slow enough to the point that if you actually see an enemy helicopter, your target priority must be the enemy heli. First off, check if the enemy helicopter is closer than 8 kilometers of range. Once it is within the range of your missile, rapidly lock and fire 4 spike missiles at the enemy helicopter. The reason why is that sometimes the helicopter can maneuver or dodge 1 or 2 spikes. However, if you actually fire 4 of them, if the first one misses, the second one corrects it. If the second one misses, the third one corrects it. And if the third one misses, the fourth one will correct it. And trust me, you do not need 5 spike ERs, like Jesus Christ, you bullied them already. And you will put them in a situation which they have no way to dodge all these missiles unless they go behind a hill or a building. It is so ridiculous that you will give Z-19s a run for their money. And again, as I said, the only way you can dodge them is to hide behind the trees or hills, or, Gaijin actually adds in some, rockets that have a smoke warhead. Gaijin win. Oh, and I almost forgot, trees are not guaranteed to completely dodge the spike ERs anyway. I have to be honest, this is a very fun gameplay to counter the K-50s and K-52s, and of course that annoying Mi-28s that... I hate directional IRCMs. God damn it. And even when it comes to firing at the enemy SPAs, always remember to fire 4 spikes at them. If you see an enemy Panzer, fire 5 to 8 of the ATGMs depending on the range. Because once you fire all of the missiles, the Panzer has enough time to actually track down and shoot down every single one of your ATGMs. As for engaging enemy ground units, I have to say it depends from tank to tank. If the enemy tank is lightly armored, 2 spikes should be enough. If it's still alive, then 3 should be a guaranteed kill. Heavily armored targets such as Abrams, T-80s, and Leopards need at least 3 to, well, maximum 5 spike ERs. So watch out and good luck on the battlefield. When it comes to heli PvE, this helicopter is just like, it's broken. Not OP, not overpowered, it's just broken. Destroying enemy bombers and attackers will be an easy job without any kind of problem. The spike ER's maneuverabilities are really well, and the speed is actually decent enough to catch the props. Destroying the enemy convoys, depending on what type of it is, can be a little bit challenging. For example, the armored convoys might take more than 1 or 2 spikes, while the normal ones will usually take only 1. Destroying the enemy assaults and defenses is also amazing. As I've already shown you, you can instantly lock and fire with these keybinds, and instantly turn on the seeker and fire, and rinse and repeat. And then you will have pretty much a result like this. This can pretty much deny a lot of people's kills, but at the end it is serviceable and quite incredible. As for destroying enemy bases, it does the job quite nicely with regards to its Hellfire spam, but overall it is something that is absolutely possible. Remember to share targets with your friends or your teammates. Always destroy the SPA-8s for okay, you know what, never mind.
I am a villain anyway, time for some domination!
Landing and capturing bases is something you can also do. I mean, if you want to roleplay as a utility helicopter, feel free to do so. For me, I just love doing all the objectives. The AH-60 Battlehawk was a helicopter that truly shocked me to my core. Because nobody talks about how dangerous and how incredible this helicopter can be. But hey, at the end of the day, it's in a tech tree that no one really plays, or not a lot of people actually play. And with the recent conflicts in the Middle East, yeah, people tend to combine politics with video games. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Dislike it if you dislike it, and if you want to support me even more, you can also give me a super thanks or join my YouTube membership if you want to. For now, this is me, Bob Dickinson, and thank you for watching.